I do have a couple things, but somebody else speak first. Linda? Brad? Nothing? Pam? Anything? Okay. A couple things I have, there's just a review of a couple quotes that I got from Lunds for some attachments, if we choose to get something. The other thing I would just put on the agenda is an informational item. And I actually would like to start with that before we get into anything else, just because it actually pertains to some people in town and stuff like that. So, with those two additions, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
In a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Alright. So, like I said, to start with, I just want to go through a couple updates because some of it pertains to town. The town has been in the process of working with TAP Law for bonding for the nursing home, just being a conduit. Just to let them know that we're expecting the last resolution to come in September, and we're going to sign for the notes sometime after that. Bob is here tonight to kind of talk about some of the projects we've talked about for water, public assistance, stuff like that. Just so people know in town, on Thursday, we're having chip sealing done on most of our streets. So if you would, not park on any of the streets, because pretty much every street is being done. And then the other one is just informational that personally I've been approached, I know a couple others have too, numerous times about suspicious activity in the park. Relates to people trespassing private property, muting in the tree lines. I have personally talked to the sheriff, he's aware of it, said he'll come around more often, but he has suggested that the city look into cameras at the park. So, just a couple updates. And just to let people know in town, if you do see something, don't tell me, call the sheriff. With that, I think, just because these guys have a long trip, we're going to have Bob talk about your topic, and that's related to water lines, public assistance, or that infrastructure.
Yep, thank you. Thanks, Randy. If you don't mind, I'm going to take my mask down while I talk here. Otherwise, I can't see you and you can't see my eyes. So, I put an outline in front of all the council members, staff members. Basically, this is a very similar agenda to what we talked about last April or May. What we were looking at doing is installing a new water main beneath the BNSF railway to serve the elevator. Right now, they have an existing 4-inch cast iron pipe that goes underneath the railroad. Don't even recall what year it was installed, but we know it's old, and the elevator has asked for a more reliable service. So, my only message this evening is if we want to move ahead with possibly constructing something in 2021, I would recommend that we move forward with getting a preliminary design survey for that area. I know I was here, I think in April, we had talked about it, we decided at that time to maybe just hold off, because it was probably not realistic to get anything done this year because of the permitting process of the BNSF railway and things like that. And I guess I just wanted to come this evening and tell people, or let the council know that if we want to look at possibly constructing something next year, we should move ahead at this time with constructing that preliminary design survey. I do have a signed agreement from the city to provide those services. I think it's around $4,800 to do that. That does not include any permit fees, flagging fees, stuff like that. One of the main things that we discussed last time I was here is we do need to have some specific railroad protective liability insurance. I believe you folks did follow up with your insurance provider. It sounds like there's been an accident or something of that sort that's maybe laid him up for a while, but like I said, I just wanted to let you folks know if we want to do that, possibly construct next year, we should do that preliminary design survey this fall yet. And the permitting process through the BNSF railway will take some time. So if it's okay with you, I think we'll go ahead and start that process. I will probably be in contact with you, Randy, to see if we can get what we need to get done through the BNSF railway to move ahead. Because again, we do need an occupancy permit to go on their property to complete the design survey. So, the other thing that I wanted to talk about this evening is if you look on page 2 of my outline, after we talked back in April, Randy and I did some corresponding, and we said, because of the cost or estimated cost of installing that new water line beneath the railway, I think right now it's about $230,000 because we do have to jack and bore a casing pipe all that good stuff, which gets very expensive very fast, and those are BNSF railway requirements. We don't have an option not to do that, we have to do that to meet their requirements, that's something that they simply stipulate that we do. We said, well, let's take a look at the system as a whole, and just submit some information to it's called the Public Facilities Authority, which is a low-interest loan/grant funding source in the state of Minnesota. So we put a laundry list of things together regarding the city's water system as far as what you think you may need coming up in the future. And at no charge, I just put some information together. It's not a huge task, submitted it. And what I've got listed on page 2 of the outline is what we came up with. And one thing is installing a water metering system. Right now, Bellingham is a little bit unique. You do not meter your water use in structures in town. And that is definitely more the exception than the rule nowadays. Most communities do have water meters in each and every structure that they serve or provide water to. So that's the first thing that we had, and the estimated cost for doing that is about $285,000. Another thing is your water treatment plant. That was constructed in 1986. It's 34 years old at this point. A lot of that equipment that we put in plants, lift stations and stuff like that, typically the design life is typically 25 years for that type of infrastructure. So, you know, your plant is operating fine right now, but it's definitely getting old and it's reaching the end of its useful life. So we just basically put an estimated cost of that together quick, and that was about $1,900,000 for that. A new elevated water storage tank. That was constructed in 1968, making it nearly 60 years old. So we threw that on the list. Estimated cost for a new elevated tank is about $900,000. And then upgrade your water distribution system, which includes installing that new water line underneath the BNSF railroad, as well as replacing the existing water line on 3rd Street from 3rd Avenue to Main Street, because right now I think that's one of the only places in town where that main is actually only 4 inches. Per Minnesota Department of Health requirements, if you're installing water main nowadays and it's supposed to provide fire suppression, we cannot install anything under 6 inches in size. So we just figured we would throw that in there as well. The estimated cost for making those improvements is about $374,000. So other than what I just told you right now, I really don't have a lot of new information on those things. The actual funding list, so I submitted this information to the PFA, the Minnesota Department of Health, back in May and June. They actually published some lists and ranked these projects coming up here, and they're gonna come out end of August, early September. Then there's a 30-day comment period, and then the final list typically come out end of September or early October. So at this time, we don't really need to probably talk about that information anymore, but I just wanted to kind of give you an update as far as where we were at, and that we will know a lot more here hopefully in a month and a half or 2 months. So, but again, I just wanted to come back, kind of give people an update where we're at. We still do have some questions as far as the property on the south side of the railway. I know I've been doing some digging. Randy, you did some digging. At some point, we're gonna have to get to the bottom of who actually owns that property on the south side. From what I can tell right now, it's the elevator's property. But when we do that preliminary design survey out there, we're gonna have our registered land surveyor look into that. He actually got a quitclaim deed, I think, from the courthouse showing that that was actually deeded to the elevator from the railroad. I think it was in, if I recall, the year 2000-ish. So I think right now it is actually probably the railroads. I know you had provided some documentation around the easement, but if I recall, that was further east than the area that we were gonna work in, and actually just reviewed that here earlier.
Yeah, that easement, what I found is literally the railroad used to own 200 feet to the south of the track.
Yeah.
We had an easement for the last 20 feet of the 200
Sure.
going on that, but it doesn't say anything about infrastructure. So
Yep.
I'm not sure how
Yep.
that was on that. So that's still in there.
Yeah, so we will have to do a little bit more digging on that, but again, my main purpose, I wanna keep it short tonight, obviously you've got a lot of important things to discuss, I just wanted to give everybody an update. And I'd like to move ahead with that preliminary design survey and see if we can get that done before the snow flies. Does anybody have any questions, comments for me while I'm here tonight? Okay, if anything comes up, as I always state, Randy's got my number, Jim's got my number, email, whatever, don't be shy, let us know. So, but I'll probably be working with Randy or whoever from the city here to get going on that preliminary design survey and try to get to the bottom of the insurance stuff, so.
I got a question about the insurance. When I talked to John, he said he thought the city had plenty of insurance to cover that. But,
Is this for the railroad?
Yeah.
Just go with theirs.
Just go for the insurance.
so, I
It's,
mean,
it's really hard to get outside insurance that they'll accept. You'll spend a lot of time just spinning them, yes, that's been my experience on that.
So we'll look into it a little bit more, you know, as we move ahead here and see if we can't get that resolved. You know, the other thought process was, how many trains come through here a day?
sometimes two, sometimes none.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sometimes
there's weeks
one.
that there's only two that come through.
So, but I think we should do what we can do there to stay on good graces with those folks, because we do have an important project coming up, so. We did get the soil borings done, the geotechnical report, that's all been done, so we do have that part of it done, so.
Any problems? Look like there didn't be any problems with that.
I don't think so, I think it's pretty much what we expected, you know, so, but still, it's just like we had talked about, it's nice to have that documentation when we do the work, so the contractor can't come back and say, hey, that unforeseen soil conditions, been there, done that. So, just a firm believer of getting that stuff done on pretty much every project that we do, so. With that, Ben, I missed anything?
I don't think so.
Okay, that's all I've got this evening. If there's no other questions for us, I think we're gonna go on down the road. Thank you for your time, and
I guess I'd like to see that preliminary.
Yeah, must have get started on that.
yep, we'll get that. Either way, I think we need to do it, and I think the goal would probably be, no matter what happens with the funding list, to do something there,
Yeah.
and we need to do it either way. So even if it's a later year or two, if we get that information, we can still use it.
So
a
is
year or two.
that will be something that will hold over, you don't have to ever redo it?
Yeah, if there's no significant changes out there, we can use that 2 or 3 years down the road.
Okay. Anybody have an issue, or anybody want a motion to have that plan done, roughly at $4,800 to have the initial land survey done?
I'll make a motion to get that done, if need be.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? All right. Yeah, just let me know what you need.
Sounds good.
All
Thank
right?
you for your time, everybody. Have a good evening.
Okay. All right, and then for the next thing, I think we're gonna kind of jump around a little bit just because of some people want to stay the whole time, definitely can obviously, but if some people don't want to stay. I would assume most everybody is here, except for a couple, for the petition that was brought around town and that was bringing up. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it last minute, I know. But, I don't have much experience with this, so Rick, if this is okay, I'm gonna actually ask you to kind of, like, what happens with this situation type thing.
Can we have an introduction, please? I don't know if we know you, and there's some other new members here. Can we have an introduction of the council members,
This
please?
is Rick Stoltz, the city attorney.
Okay,
Good talk.
Yep.
okay, yes, no,
Linda Hoffman was just appointed to fill
okay,
in for
the
Sheriff.
vacant spot,
Yep.
okay,
Yep, sorry about that.
okay. And Jim, Randy, and
Brian.
Brian, yeah, and Tam.
You know everybody else?
That's irrelevant, I don't, but,
Yeah, and so like, Rick, like, do you need background on what's gone on? I think you kind of know.
No, see, I understand what's going
Okay.
on. So the way this works, so the statutes, the council is in charge of adopting ordinances. There really is no process to petition to force that to happen. Like you and I talked, I mean, this is more persuasive than anything that
correct.
showing the support of.
I mean, if you got the will of the people,
Correct, yeah,
yes.
so it's more of a persuasive document for you guys to consider.
Okay.
There is no process for citizens to adopt an ordinance.
Okay,
At least not in their ordinance rule book. Some cities
Well, not-
spell that out, you know, in the ordinances, how to petition.
I'm not aware of anyone that would allow an ordinance to be adopted that's a criminal, that has a criminal end to it. That usually comes through an elected body.
How do they have a criminal end?
Well, a violation of the ordinance would be a misdemeanor.
But it needs to be proved.
What's that?
It needs to be proved. So if there's no
What does that
criminal action currently,
That does not do it.
oh, okay.
It's just, there's no process to petition the city to force an ordinance that has a criminal nature to it. That has to be done by elected officials. So these guys would have to adopt that.
fully understand, but okay, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
There are some, you can do some petitions and referendums for certain things, taxing districts, things like that, that don't have that aspect to it. There is a process for certain things like that, but
Okay.
I'm not aware of any for ordinances,
Okay,
so.
Well, you know, like you said, that's more of a persuasive document. We, like, as a council, I mean, except for Linda being the exception since she was just appointed, I mean, it's been talked about twice. And you know, of other outside factors that, as long as we discuss it and we, do we feel, somebody feels moved to actually consider doing, what do we do next?
Well, in a normal process, if there's no motion, we won't discuss it.
Okay,
So somebody have to motion a second before the topic came to the table.
okay, okay.
Where did this one come from? This draft of the ordinance?
I made it,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Did you look at that? Madison had an ordinance.
Yeah,
No, I never looked at Madison's.
Okay.
Yeah, cause
I'm not concerned about Madison, I'm concerned about Bellingham and their ordinance and how it's structured and what would be best for this town. Madison might adopt something different and how they wrote theirs, that's on Madison.
The only benefit is we helped draft that one, so that was,
Well-
that's why I suggested we talk.
Thank you.
That's okay.
No, I guess I'm not sure what the next step is. If, I don't know, I don't even know how many signatures are on the petition. It's never been shown.
Again, it's just a persuasive.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know if that's something we need to see in order to,
It's up to you guys.
is that something you guys wanna get into further? I mean, I don't know.
Personal feelings.
What was that, sir? I couldn't quite hear you.
I said I didn't have any changes in my feelings. I expressed my feelings at the last time we discussed.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
I do not feel that that's, they belong.
I guess I haven't had a chance to read this. I don't know anything about it, so.
I apologize. We took a large sample of the population here and if we didn't make it to your house,
Why?
or maybe we did and you weren't
I
home.
just don't wanna say anything until I've had a chance to
I
read it.
agree. I wouldn't do anything without looking at a document.
So, but I mean, this could just be tabled to another meeting to allow everybody to look at it. The way these ordinances work is they just kind of restrict the number, the conditions, usually gotta get a permit.
And that's spelled out, when you take time to look at it, we
So
try to
I
spell it
assume
out.
it's similar to what other ones look at, so
Yes.
that's kind of the general idea.
And that first page is just the bulletin, like the main points of what's in the petition.
Well, out of respect and everything, just because I know it kind of was short notice for the council, I don't even know if everybody saw it, that we do, out of respect for the request, table it until next month and everybody sit down and consider. I mean, without even knowing names, can you tell us how many people signed it?
May I have permission to talk for a few minutes and explain my petition and,
Yeah.
and go through? And then if you guys choose to table it and how you follow procedure, that's on this committee, and how you decide to move forward, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna pull my mask down so I can speak a little better. I'm gonna stand up. For anyone here that don't know me, my family and myself, my name is Mark Gray. We moved into town recently, about 2 years ago, and, saw a very beautiful community here. We're not from the area. We just needed to be close to our place of business, and we found a home that was very, very poor condition. You're all very familiar with the home. And in the 2 years of time that we've been here, we have struggled day and night, weekends, Sundays, it doesn't matter. We have pulled so much trash, and yes, we bought the property, that's our trash that we bought, but from day one, thousands and thousands of pounds of trash, dead and dying diseased trees. We have been cleaning up the property, installing new windows, cleaning up the house, making it very sightly for the residents of Bellingham, as well as the gardening and the accents we do around the property, and trying to show that we are outgoing people and that we mean no ill will towards anybody. In fact, we regularly help various neighbors throughout the community just be benevolent, no other reason at all. And I'm just gonna have to kind of go through how we come to the point of this petition. I come Easter last Easter, I come to the city meeting asking for a specific variance for chickens that I did purchase. I purchased these chickens for the reason that it's not excusable, and I completely understand that you have an ordinance, but at the time when I bought the property, the realtor sold it to me on the idea that chickens are completely allowed in Bellingham. Again, that doesn't make it allowable just because someone said it. Didn't get chickens right away. It's been at least a full year. In that year, regularly speaking with multiple neighbors in this town, regularly, including council members, regularly telling me, yes, I don't see a problem with chickens. As far as I know, chickens were allowed in this town. There's no reason for you not to have chickens. Okay, we get chickens. And then there was quite an event on my lawn one afternoon, and I requested, since I was unaware of the city ordinance, and this was a Friday before Easter, I asked the city if I would be allowed to at least come to the next city meeting to ask for a variance. I've already made the investment. Yes, it was my fault in my ignorance for not racing down to the city to open up the book of 700 ordinances and learn every one. Yes, I take responsibility for that. That is completely on me for not updating myself with the city ordinances. But again, I asked for a variance on that Friday last year of Easter. Can I have time to come to a city meeting? My mayor and my city worker agreed to that. I would have plenty of time to come to the city meeting to ask the council for a variance for my specific situation. I was not asking for the entire town. I own an acre and a half of property on the far edge of town, across the county road, with no inhabitable property surrounding my property except for one adjoining property, which was an ex-council member who is completely in favor of us having chickens. And that following Monday after Easter, we did not make it the week and a half to the city meeting. I received a notice that says if you do not remove your chickens from this property, it is a maximum of a $300 a day fine that unless I remove my chickens in less than 7 days. It does not put me anywhere near the council meeting that I was going to be able to attend. I also agreed that Friday on my lawn that I would be down Monday morning when the city opens to refresh myself on the city ordinances so I could understand them. I'm getting ready to leave my house, and before I get out the door, 10 a.m. when the city office opens, I have a notice saying $300 a day, get rid of your chickens. I proceeded on to the city, and I went and I asked for a copy of the ordinance, and because of fiscal reasons or whatnot, I was denied, so I snapped pictures of every one so I had time to go through these ordinances and read them in detail. And at the same time, I have this $300 a day notice. I contested this notice immediately with my mayor, asking why am I not being allowed to now make it to the city meeting? And it was an irrelevant conversation to the city council at large. I immediately, it took me 2 days from that notice, I complied. I removed my chickens and anything to do with the chickens from my property in 2 days' time. I recorded this and I made a certified letter and mailed it to the city for confirmation that we have complied. And when I attended the city meeting, it was rather appalling. It was not a fun meeting, and the word is, as a resident of Bellingham, to this city council, I am entitled to a fair and impartial council meeting that is kept in order. And none of that happened at that council meeting. In fact, there was a refusal of any vote to be taken, and the suggestion, highly suggestive, that the only way this will be done in Bellingham is if I petition. Since that point, we realized, being new in the area, my family and myself decided, no, this isn't worth this. This is too much heat. We don't know what type of can of worms we opened up here inadvertently. We had no idea. And so we gave up this whole idea. And fast track, a full year later, Easter again, this year, And on Easter again, a full year later, I text my mayor and I says, do you mind if me and my wife come speak with you? This is off city time, this is on private time. And the mayor agreed, and, you know, it was a very personal talk, more on a, you know, person-to-person basis. It was more of two people talking. And in fact, my wife is a Walmart manager, and we were asked by the city if we would pick up stuff because of the COVID crisis for random people in the community. Full-heartedly agreed to that. We are very outgoing. We have no problem doing that. In fact, we've been doing that quite regularly for some of the elderly people in town. And by the end of that talk, the mayor says, what would you like to talk about? And I brought up the chickens. I said, I would like, if it's possible, it's been a year, we want to forget anything that's happened in the past. And we would like to move forward with asking the city again for a variance. We were not talking about a free-for-all. We were talking about a very organized, very controlled situation that would be isolated to my property alone. It had nothing to do with any other resident in this town. And I was, again, denied that variance, and that is the city's prerogative. But what had happened, and this sums up the petition, that night, the mayor was very, very positive, saw no reason personally that there couldn't be the idea of chickens in town, something that we could certainly explore. And it sounded very positive. There sounded to be a very bad situation in this town 30 to 40 years ago, very long time ago. And it's time to readdress this situation. And the mayor was very positive in this situation. So at this time, COVID, lockdown, full government lockdown, stay in your homes. This is Easter. And the city was meeting digitally at this time, I believe, I'm not sure. And the mayor explained the situation, that it's kind of complex to hold meetings right now, and we're trying to figure out how to chime people into the meeting. This would be, the meeting was a follow-up, maybe a couple days from this date that we were speaking with the mayor. He suggested that he would bring this up, ask for the variance at the council meeting, and he would immediately that evening or the following day give us the results of the meeting. 3 weeks later, no call, no nothing, no information. I am at Runnings in Millbank, Minnesota, and this was a nutty time that this whole planet went through around Easter time. Eggs at Walmart were $6 a dozen. Chickens at every hatchery across the United States was selling out. People were going hungry during this time in long, massive food lines. No one knew the future. And my wife, I called her from Runnings in Millbank, and I said, look, they have 9 chickens left in the den. They will not get any more. The hatcheries can't hatch them out. They are way backlogged. The butchers are backlogged. And she says, you know what? 9 egg-laying hens, just grab them, we'll set it up. It was very positive with the mayor. We haven't heard back. Yes, we technically didn't get an okay on this, but it's been 3 weeks. We haven't heard anything, and I had to make a decision. Right or wrong, I still had to make this decision to get these chickens. In the meantime, I get the chickens home, and I build, in my opinion, a very structurally sound, up to code, highly technical chicken coop and run that is fully escape proof. Netting, caging, all this stuff. Very well done, very well cleaned. And while I'm building this, I have countless drive-bys by many city members watching me build this. And within a couple days of this, I do receive a letter certified from the city with the mayor and the clerk's signature on it, explaining that my variance has been denied yet again, and with reasons given on that letter. One of the reasons given on the letter was a long-term resident of Bellingham stated the facts about what had happened in this town 40 years ago and why having an uncontrolled situation would be bad for the community. That was reason one I'm being denied, even though this is looking for a controlled situation. Number 2, the second reason why I'm denied, again, I'm asking for a variance for my own specific situation. My own property has nothing to do with any other resident. If anything, it would have to do with my only adjoining neighbor given permission, maybe. But But that didn't happen. And this second excuse that was given on why I was denied the variance, it was spelled out very well that since we were blatant violators of nuisance laws and ordinances of the city of containing a great deal of trash on the property and completely unwilling to clean up our trash, that we and that many others in town have trash on their property, that we will allow chickens, that basically I will be very irresponsible with the raising of chickens. And that is my ad-libbing. It did not say irresponsible. I am saying that because that's the gist of the letter, and I can read the letter to me. But very bizarre letter, and very blindsided by this because there isn't a single person in this town, including the council members, that have not seen the improvements on this property over the last 2 years. One family, without writing checks to contractors, following state code and guidelines and building permits and everything that we've had to do to follow, as far as we understood, we clean and clean and clean. So the excuses given really have blindsided us. And at this point, we have the 9 chickens. That letter arrives. Now my timeline right now, I have it spelled out, but my timeline right now might be a little skewed, but this was approximately 1 week following this letter. I received criminal charges from the city claiming that I have created such a nuisance violation in the city, I've violated the city ordinances for nuisance laws, and that I have unduly caused a great amount of nuisance to my immediate neighbors, which have been complaining nonstop. I'm ad-libbing these just for the just of time. But, and on those notes, I have made several calls, I've filled out forms, I've gone to several different authority agencies. There is not one file and one complaint, nothing on record. There has never been anybody to come to me from the city, no notice, no police officer, nothing to my personal address to say you are in violation. Nothing other than saying that there's an ordinance in town regarding no chickens, and I understood I am in violation of that. And but with the letter stating and the court criminal charges stating that I have unduly created a nuisance, and against the advice of my counsel, I called the prosecuting attorney to get some clarification on this, and I says, can you please tell me the names that I'm being complained with? Because I am rightfully, legally, should be told the names of my accusers. She would not give me any names. She just read the same statement over and over that I have unduly hurt and caused many complaints with several neighbors in the neighborhood. And I said, what are the complaints? Can you please tell me that? Is it noise? Is it sound? Is it sight? Is it smell? What are the complaints? And she just kept reading the same thing. And I said, thank you, and I got off the phone with her.